everybody. Welcome to
the Macabre Podcast Universe.
It's the podcast that
exists
to
prove
people
wrong
when
they
say
sequels
are
never
better
than
the
originals.
And we are going back into the clay that founded us. We're going back a century, perhaps thousands of years, all the way back to the Genesis, when that big robot instructed us to make a podcast. Trying to make a loose analogy.
Yep.
And so for those of you who have been fans for a long time, you know that we've covered Marvel, and now that we're caught up, we cover them as they come out.
Yes.
So last weekend, we went and saw Eternals, the new Marvel Cinematic Universe. Oh, and if you don't know, when we cover a new release like this, we're going to keep it spoiler-free until a certain point, and then there will literally be a song, a spoiler alert song, and then we'll go through the plot.
You've been warned.
So, well, you can hang out, because we're not going to spoil anything.
You've been warned about the later stuff.
Yeah. But here we are. This was a movie that is directed by... I'm trying to figure out a way to start. Do you have anything to kind of kick us off here, Jordan?
No, I would just like to get into it as soon as possible.
Okay. This movie is bad. Can we say that?
It's boring.
I really dislike this movie.
Yeah.
Now, it's a little bit complicated because on a basis of film, there's certain things about this movie that if they were done in a way that I thought was better, I would be very happy about. Because we've talked about how Marvel is a very homogenized brand. Mm-hmm. You see one movie, they all kind of look the same, and then occasionally something sticks out, like a Thor Ragnarok, a Guardians of the Galaxy, but those are kind of few and far between. And when they announced that they were doing Eternals, and they got Oscar-winning director Chloé Zhao to direct it. At the time, she hadn't won an Oscar yet, but still. It was kind of like, whoa, what is this going to be?
Yeah.
And I'm seeing the trailers, and I'm like, this looks different.
Yeah.
It's still not super colorful, but that's also kind of her style. So it's like, this is kind of leaning into her style.
I just feel like Nomadland had a color palette. Had like a theme.
Yeah, and I think this movie does as well.
Okay.
It more focuses on gold.
Yeah.
Very much so. But so on the one hand, here's what I'm going to say to present the movie as we get going. I truly believe that this is a Chloé Zhao movie. And I think she was able to do what she wanted to do. Mm-hmm. And I want Marvel to keep allowing directors to do that.
Yeah.
But much like something in DC where they just allow a director to go crazy and I don't like it, that's what this is. That's an example where this breaks down.
Yeah.
But what I'm going to critique on this movie is not so much the filmmaking itself, but I think the story, the acting, and the characters are on just a basis like writing level bad and not well thought out and not good. And this movie is so long. Mm-hmm. I made a tweet today where I said it was weird that Eternals was 7 hours long, but a bold move. Because it truly, this movie, it felt like we were sitting down to watch like Lawrence of Arabia or something. Yeah. And at the end of the day, you're like, come on, it's a superhero movie.
Yeah,
let's get done with it.
Long.
So that's kind of how I want to start it. Your turn now.
Well, I don't want to say too much because I don't want to give away spoilers. But
okay,
I will say that pretty early on in the movie, I just got that pit in my stomach of crap. Where is this going? And that just happens when I'm watching a movie, and that I would say more times than not is probably not a good quality I have, because I have to sometimes fight that urge to like completely dismiss the movie too early, and then I just start picking things apart. But that being said, that was kind of this movie. It was just hard early on to not be confused about what was going on and like choices being made and then I it got to a point where I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm feeling this way, and there's so much movie left.
No.
There's so much
I
movie
know.
left. Like, I wish I could have turned this off.
I know.
And I like still feel this way after sleeping on it, but like borderline don't want to I borderline want to pretend this doesn't exist in the MCU cinematic universe.
Yeah. So yes, I like what this movie represents in an artistic realm for hopefully future directors. But again, I think the movie's pretty dang bad. But I have seen a lot of people that I respect that are like, wow, the MCU is finally letting people do stuff. But I'm like, yeah, but not
But
this.
at what cost? Making me so bored for 2 hours?
I know. Yeah, I think for me, and when we go over plot, I'll get into it, but there was a point, and I want to guess it was around half hour to 45 minutes in where I was like, okay, I don't like this.
Well, this is my thing too, is like, I am for giving directors what they want to do, what they want to do.
Yeah.
Let the creativity fly. But
Good example, Suicide Squad. The Suicide Squad.
The Suicide Squad. But the issue is that yes, risks are being taken, but the movie was still so cookie cutter in some ways.
Right.
So it's like, okay, sure, maybe visually, like, the cinematography was there, but honestly, that's it. Because everything else was so lacking. There were like bits and pieces of a hint of a character having something interesting that was like, oh, let's follow that. And then they like forgot that this character existed for 30 minutes. Yeah. And then like there's just a lot of stuff like that. And there were like some world building stuff that's like, that's kind of interesting, but it's breaking my brain in terms of what we've gone through for the past 20-something movies or however many movies it is. I don't know, but I don't think it's 20. But
I think it's 26 now, I think.
Okay, but yeah, like going through so much of that and them establishing that for so long, it is like, yeah, it's time for Marvel. That's a new phase. They're taking different new risks that we haven't seen in the past 26 movies. But to the point where it's like, oh, so nothing the Avengers does matters.
Yeah.
At the end of the day. Anything that Thanos didn't matter.
Yes.
At the end of the day. And I know that's what I'm saying is it kind of like breaks my brain.
And that's I think that's a valid point for the MCU.
And I know that's a comic book thing.
But I was going to say, comic book wise, that doesn't like hurt me at all.
And
I
don't read the comics. So maybe that's just my disadvantage going into these things. But it's hard. It just breaks my brain.
Yeah. So like what you're saying is like we have Thanos, who's supposed to be like the biggest baddie ever.
Which
and
I
then,
know that's not necessarily true. I know they were building up to it for a long time, and they did a really good job, and they did it.
Yeah.
But it wouldn't make sense for this next phase to be like there's someone that's just as big out there because we have thousands of comic books and like hundreds of other villains who are just as bad as him.
Yeah.
It's like I have to like force myself to allow to be okay with that possibility.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
So I admit that part of that's me.
But I mean, maybe like a compromise is maybe this movie shouldn't be like the third or the fourth movie after Thanos.
Yeah.
If it's supposed to be this big of a event.
Yeah.
But also I do get what you're saying. I just don't feel that way.
Yeah.
But I think it's actually a pretty valid point. I just hadn't even thought about it till now. So what's weird about this is Eternals are these characters that were both created and written and drawn by Jack Kirby. As you know, many people know, one of the titans of comic books. Mm-hmm. And what I find fascinating, when they announced this project, I hadn't quite gotten into as much comics as I read now, but I was still dabbling in comics, and I was kind of like, who are the Eternals?
Yeah.
And then I read a run that was written by Neil Gaiman, and I thought it was okay / I didn't really like it.
Yeah.
And then everything I heard from comic book nerds and fans and stuff like that was like, oh yeah, the Eternals is that series that every few years they try and create, it doesn't sell well, and then they cancel it.
Yeah.
And so they've been around since the 70s, but they've never been popular.
Yeah.
And they've never, like, we talked about how Iron Man was like a B
Right.
Marvel player.
Right.
I think Eternals is more like a C minus.
Oh, wow.
They might even be less popular than Shang-Chi.
Oh, wow.
And Shang-Chi, we talked about earlier this year, was not a popular character either.
Yeah.
So when they announced this, I'm like, that's cool. Here are some people they can kind of do whatever they want with. But, I don't know, I walked out of the movie and I was kind of like, oh boy.
Yeah.
There's a lot of other characters I think I'd rather see before we're scrounging for Eternals.
Right.
And it makes me think of that kind of the joke of the Suicide Squad, how they have characters like Ratcatcher 2 and Polka Dot Man and all these things where it feels like, and this was in a review I read, but James Gunn was kind of like, how long are we going to put up with learning about new heroes?
Yeah.
Like, I'm going to throw in people you've never heard of because this trend has gone on for so many years now.
Were those characters created for that movie?
No. Those are real characters, but
he
it's
just
like
kind of like he dug in deep for some really
it's
out
like
of the box. Yeah.
Your average person doesn't know who Ratcatcher is.
Yeah.
You know? So I was like excited by that idea. Then seeing the movie, I'm like, oh boy. And it seems like they have a lot of plans for these characters, the way it ended.
Oh, yeah. Right.
And I like the post-credit scenes, and I won't say what they were for until afterward. I was like, I don't need this. I don't need this. Can be its own thing, and we can be done with this. Now, maybe I'm being a little harsh, but it is how I feel. So let's maybe get into who made it a little bit. So directed by Chloé Zhao, and here's where already the pot gets weird. So the story is by Ryan Firpo, who made a documentary called Bet, Raise, Fold about online poker.
Oh my gosh, it's so cool.
Kaz Kerpo, who
made a documentary about online poker.
Well, he did this. This is a quote from his bio. He worked on the front lines of the Syrian refugee crisis, creating the Refugee Project, a multimedia chronicle that premiered at South by Southwest.
Cool.
So you have these two people story by that make documentaries.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
So already I'm like, that's kind of weird.
Yeah.
It's not unheard of.
Yeah.
But it is a little weird.
Yeah.
Then you have the screenplay by those two guys, Chloé Zhao, Patrick Burleigh, who did Peter Rabbit 2 and did the Black Knight movie that is filming at the moment. Black Knight, not a character that's later referenced in this movie, a different Black Knight that is directed by Genndy Tartakovsky.
Oh, is that an animated movie?
I don't know.
Oh,
but
okay.
Whatever that is, if Gendy's behind it, I want to give him money to look at it.
Yeah.
What a weird way to...
I think they just finished this next season of Primal.
Oh!
Just so you know.
Thank you, Jordan.
You don't follow him?
I do follow him, but
okay.
I don't see all that stuff. So what I want to point out here is Chloé Zhao last year made a movie called Nomadland. It won Best Picture,
and
Best Actress.
A really good movie.
It is amazing.
It's really good.
Very happy it won.
Beautiful movie. Visually, the story is so wonderful. It felt very real. I mean, it is based on a memoir. So, but yeah, it's just a very real movie.
Yes.
So therefore, like, hearing that she is making a Marvel movie, it's like, that's an interesting choice in a cool way.
Yeah.
And if anything, it will look good.
Right. And I do think this movie looks great.
It looks good,
most
but
part.
like I said last night, I was
With an
so
asterisk for me.
bored during this movie and disliked it so greatly that I didn't even care how it looked, unfortunately. And it does look good.
Well, so I'm going to fold back on a couple of points. So as far as visuals go, I think that the movie looked great. It was fun seeing real locations in movies that have now gotten to where they only shoot them in blue screen. Like, there was this scene in Black Widow. I don't know if you remember, but it's Florence Pugh and Scarlett Johansson sitting outside a bench in Mexico.
Yeah. That's a blue screen?
That was all CG. Everything except for the table was CG.
Boring.
And, you know, I saw this floating around Twitter.
That's impressive because I didn't know that.
Well, that was the thing. It was floating around Twitter as like, look at how amazing this is. And then everyone on film Twitter was kind of like, why didn't you just shoot
Yeah.
outside.
Yeah.
And so on this movie, they were like, Chloe was like, I want to shoot on location. Please let me do it. And
Yeah.
they said, absolutely, you can do it. And I think that does feel nice.
Yeah.
Because think about, like, there's a lot of scenes in this movie where they're in exotic locations and there's not other people around.
Yeah.
And in other movies, like the Justice League movies, you look around and you're just seeing a CGI landscape and you're like, what is this? I don't like looking at this.
Yeah.
What is this random place? But since these are real locations, you're looking around and you're just seeing the Eternals in this spot by themselves, and it looks cool.
Yeah.
And so it really works in the movie's favor, the filming on location. But what I don't like about it is Jack Kirby is this genius artist. And if you read like the original run of Fantastic Four or Eternals or whatever, he just has these, every comic book panel that this guy made is just like bombastic, crazy, a lot of cool tech, all this stuff. And it is just like in your face, crazy, colorful, insane. And this is a complaint with a lot of comic book movies for me. But it's just like, you're going to take something he created and you're going to make it this bland. I think that's that kind of sucks. You're taking like the juice of Jack Kirby out of this.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it would be my same complaint if like the Fantastic Four movie they make looks like this. I'm not going to like that movie. Because it needs to look like crazy. Crazy. So that's my little visual rant. I have a list of rants. But I saw this article today that was saying Marvel still has a problem. Like, this is still not a Chloé Zhao movie. And
Okay.
I want to counter that point because she's got a screenwriting credit on this. And what do we know from Nomadland? It's a movie that doesn't have a lot of direction plot-wise in a good way.
Yeah.
It
Right,
shouldn't.
Right.
This movie, what does it not have in a good way? It doesn't have a good plot.
It
Like-
doesn't have that in a good way. You mean a bad way?
I mean in a bad way.
Yeah.
It doesn't feel like it's driving for this plot. It doesn't feel intense.
Yeah.
It just is like slowly taking its time, not in a good way.
Yeah.
And then visually, it definitely looks like one of her movies. And then finding out that she went to Marvel and pitched this,
Really interesting.
which that's kind of cool.
Yeah.
But she came to them and she said, because she had heard that they wanted to make Eternals, and she's like, I'm a fan of the MCU. I
Yeah.
like these movies a lot, which is cool.
Yeah.
And she says, can I make this movie? Presents a pitch, and they're like, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, all of that, back to the cinematography. It's by Ben Davis, who we've talked about a lot. You know, he did Doctor Strange and a bunch of Marvel movies.
Okay.
But he's also doing the upcoming The King's Man movie.
I can't talk about it.
You can't? I was
No.
ready to transition right into it.
We have seen the trailer for this movie for like 2 years now. I don't think that the movie exists. It's not dropping. It's been pushed back so many times because of the pandemic, and now it's releasing the same weekend as Matrix. And
Same day as Matrix. And by the way, it was pushed, I think, 3 times before the pandemic.
yeah, and so I'm sure the people involved in this who make these decisions are just like, okay, fine, this is the date. We can't move it for nothing anymore, guys. We got to get rid of this movie. And then it was announced that Matrix 4 was coming out the same date, and everyone's like, no! But they can't change it. And we have seen this trailer so many times.
I just needed the audience to hear that.
I'm
rant.
tired of it. And I'm not going to see the movie. So stop.
I know. When we go to the movies tomorrow, if that trailer
It's
plays,
playing. It's playing.
I think I'm going to have to like get up and walk
Yeah.
out for a little bit.
yeah.
The music to this movie is by Ramin. I should have looked up how to pronounce his name. Ramin Djawadi.
Okay.
And
You said the music.
music. And here's what's cool. He has done one other MCU movie, but nothing else. He did the original Iron Man.
Wow.
So he made
What
his
do you mean
return.
the original Iron Man? Iron Man 1?
Iron Man 1.
Okay.
I'm sorry. Yeah, that was a weird way to word it. And then, of course, the movie comes out. What day is it today? November 5th comes out. And this movie has a $200 million budget.
Wow.
That's a big blank check to write.
Yeah.
And here's what I will say. We can't really do box office because we're recording this on the day it came out because we saw it on preview night.
Uh-huh.
I don't think this movie's going to do too well.
Yeah.
I think it'll break even. But as we'll talk about, it's been censored in a lot of countries. It's not coming out in a lot of countries. We'll get to that.
Oh, okay.
And I really think the drop-off from this weekend to next weekend is going to be in like the 70s or even 80s.
Yeah.
Like 80% drop.
Yeah.
Because it's gotten bad reviews, and I think everyone who is duty-bound to see Marvel is going to see it this weekend. And then everyone's going to go, oh, was that worth seeing?
Yeah, by word of mouth, they'll say no. So the Marvel people who haven't seen it yet are like, oh, okay, then I'm just going to wait until it comes on Disney+.
Yeah.
Is it on Disney+?
It's not.
Okay.
No. So that's just my guess.
Yeah.
We'll know in a little bit. I could be totally wrong. Maybe it'll do gangbusters.
No, it won't.
And
it won't.
There's part of me that wants it to so that they reward the artistic behavior.
Yeah, but it won't.
I don't think so.
Yeah.
I did turn to you halfway through the movie and I said, this movie's not going to make any money. So before we get into like some more of the behind the scenes, I really want to paint the picture for what you and I experienced last night at the theater.
Oh, yeah. But wait, tell me about the censoring thing, or is that later?
It's later.
Oh, okay.
Well, okay, I can tell you. Let me just scroll down to it.
I know things are like always censored in China.
Yeah, so Zhao is a Chinese-American filmmaker.
Yeah.
I believe, I'm not sure, I could be getting this wrong. I think she was born in China but raised in America.
Okay.
And she's been very outspoken with how bad the country is over there.
Yeah.
That's what she said. And so China is like, we're not going to release this movie.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And
that China makes a lot of money for movies.
Yeah. And who knows? It might, that they might still, the articles I was reading were saying like, China's probably not going to.
Okay.
But I guess they still could.
Okay.
And then because of the openly gay character in this movie who has a husband, the film will not be released in Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, or Qatar.
Okay.
So, yeah, that's that situation.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Anyway, so it's going to be hard for this movie to make it over some humps, I think.
Yeah.
So let's talk about our movie theater experience, though.
Yeah. Well, it's more of a you thing.
But
yeah.
Okay.
I mean, it did affect me too, but I wasn't sitting next to the people.
So we go and we sit down in the theater. We're in row G, of course. I usually like to get one row up. I don't know why I chose G, but sitting in row G, and these two people, this woman and I'm assuming her son, come and they sit next to me. And then this man comes up with this little girl. Mm-hmm. And the man kisses the woman. And then the woman and the son leave.
The boy has since left. No, the boy left.
Okay, he left.
Yeah.
And then the mom leaves. And then dad and daughter sit down. There's only 2 seats next to us.
And by body language, it didn't seem to me like the daughter, this is my theory, is the man and woman are dating.
Yeah.
And they both have children. Because based on body language, like the girl was not really paying attention to the woman.
Uh-huh.
And like not like shyness or something, you know? So that's my theory.
And I think that theory holds up. But what's weird is, so there's only 2 seats next to me. And any avid fan of this podcast will know, usually Jordan has the bad theater experience. Mm-hmm. This time, I it's like I had to pay back like tenfold. Well, actually, you've had some pretty bad experiences.
Some pretty bad experiences.
But there's 2 seats next to me, and those 4 people are just kind of standing there. The son leaves, but the 3 are standing there, and they're like looking at their phone a bunch, and I'm like checking my phone, and I'm going, we're in the right seats, but they're not saying anything to anyone. And then the mom leaves, and the dad and the daughter sit down. And I just guessed that the daughter was like 12. But then I heard her talking, and I'm like, maybe she's younger than that. So I'm sitting by this girl, and as the movie's going, it was excruciating because I'm not kidding you, folks. Every single scene, at least 2, maybe as many times as 4, I'm talking scene, she'd go, "Who's that? Is that in the future or are we back at the past?" And she's like trying to whisper, but she's being too loud and then quieting and stuff. And then the dad has his phone in the cup holder on full brightness.
Yeah.
And he's texting what we presume to be the woman.
The woman, his girlfriend. And this is what I think happened. This Marvel movie comes out, and they both have kids of the appropriate age that would be fans of this.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, let's go to the movie. Like, they decided this. So we saw the movie on Thursday night. They decided this on a Wednesday night. Let's go to the movies.
Yeah. I love this. This is so what happened.
And
they're probably listeners of the show.
They look up to get tickets, and they're like, man, there's no 4 seats together. Dang it. Like, you know, I really, though, want to take my daughter to this movie. So, like, we're going to I'm going to get tickets for us. And then she's like, oh, I'll still take my son to this movie. That's fine. But since they're dating, and who knows where they're at in the relationship. Clearly, they have not been dating long enough, though, that they're like, my son and your daughter can just sit together, and we can get sit together. It's not that they're not to that stage of the relationship. Yeah. So therefore, it would be weird if they did that, if they made their kids sit together and they don't know each other.
It seemed like the kid was probably like 15.
Yeah, he was a teenager.
She's like, after hearing her talk so much, I'm like, oh, she's like probably 9.
Like 10 or 9.
Yeah.
So they can't sit together. So, and I saw the phone thing like during trailers, and I'm like, who's totally texting the woman. And then I saw the brightness throughout the movie too. It was easier for me to block it out, but it's like, he's just texting this woman the whole movie.
And it was, I mean, folks, I've sat by people who have texted before, and I think that it's like a cardinal sin. Just turn off your phone. It's really not that hard to not text for 2 hours. Or in this case, 3 hours. But this was like, okay, if you're going to text, at least turn the brightness all the way down.
Yeah.
Because every time his phone would light up, I'm like looking over.
Yeah.
So.
Did you see what they were saying?
No.
Wish I'd worn my glasses. But yeah, and then they like went to the bathroom at one point, and they came back and sat down, and then like not 2 minutes later they just up and left.
Yeah.
We still like third act to go.
Yeah.
And they just left.
Yeah, but they went up. They didn't go down.
Oh, I thought they went up or down.
No, they went up. So I think like they found some extra seats in the back or something. So I was happy about that because then we didn't have to. I didn't have to put up with it. But it was weird. And then the other thing that was funny is the Batman trailer started playing, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna go to the bathroom, just double check here, and I'm moseying on back, just slow because the trailers had just started, and I knew we were in it for 30 minutes or whatever. So I'm just moseying back, and I hear this song playing on this trailer. And I'm going, oh, yeah, what trailer is this? And I'm just continuing to mosey back. And then I round the corner, and I see on the screen Keanu Reeves' face. And I run to my seat because I'm like, I haven't seen the Matrix trailer in theaters yet. This is going to be awesome. And I sit down. I'd missed, 10 seconds or so. But I was like, oh, yeah, baby. And as you all know, well, actually, you might not know yet. So maybe I shouldn't say anything. But
you were very excited about that, though.
Yes.
And that was the first time I saw the trailer at all.
Yeah.
And it looked good.
And we've been watching the Matrix movies, wink, wink. And so we're both like in the mindset, I think, where it's like, oh, yeah, let's go. But that's a good reminder that next week we'll be jumping into Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, which is a delightful movie, and you should definitely watch and listen to that episode.
Yeah, so Keanu's on the brain.
Yeah, Keanu's on the brain. We haven't been watching the movies for any other reason except for enjoyment. So let me hit you with a couple more things about the movie, and then we'll be done here. And we'll pack up shop, and we'll be done.
Can you just get through it?
Chloe cited The Revenant as an influence on the action in this movie.
I know what she means by the bear scene, because there was a couple times where like that dude was being thrown out, and I'm like, oh, this reminds me of Revenant.
I was like, there were 2 shots in the movie where I said, this isn't even like homage to Revenant. This is like they're recreating the Revenant.
When it was happening, I was just curious how they did it compared to the Revenant. Because and like apparently the Revenant was very unsafe.
Yeah.
Like it could have really hurt someone the way that they did it.
Yeah.
But in this, like with this at this stakes and being a couple years in the future. It's like, I'm curious how unsafe this was.
Right. But yeah, it was, to me, it was so much like The Revenant that it was actually distracting.
Yeah. I agree.
Because it was like the creature was acting exactly like the bear does in The Revenant, down to like it pawing at him and stuff. It was kind of like, okay. But then this is just kind of a crazy factoid. In early November, they're filming on the Canary Islands, and the whole cast and crew had to be evacuated from the shoot because there was an explosive device found there that was probably a remnant from a Nazi base.
Whoa.
Nobody
Where
was
are the
hurt
Canary
or anything.
Islands?
I do not know.
Look it up.
Okay, here we go. I'm looking
I've
at
heard of it
Canary
before,
Islands.
and I feel like it's got to be. Well, I don't want to make a guess. To sound
It is
stupid.
in the archipelagos in Spain.
Archipelago.
Archipelago? Archipelagos, I think, is what they're
I
called.
think that's how you say it, and I don't think it's how I said it. Now you got to Google how to say it.
Archipelago. Let's see. Here we go. Got to download it.
Come on,
It didn't work.
please. I need to know how you say it. Just Google and get the robot to say it. Why don't you just get Google to say it?
I didn't. I don't know.
We are looking at how to pronounce this word in English or American, designating an extensive group of islands. So, a bunch of islands close to one another. How do you go about pronouncing it? Archipelago. Do not say archipelago.
Archipelago. I was right.
No, that's not acceptable.
Wait.
Stop it.
Jordan, look at this video.
Have you not seen that?
No, have you?
Yeah.
It's a cat in Jurassic Park.
Yeah. Okay, wait. Stop it.
Okay.
Archipelago.
I've always heard it not that way.
Yeah, it's archipelago. But I didn't realize that just meant a group of islands. I thought there was only like one place called the archipelagos. So I was also wrong.
Speaking of mispronouncing, I will get into some actors.
Well, here we are, folks. It's the Christmas season, and that means I'm putting on another Christmas show on my YouTube, much like I did last year. This year, it's December 11th, 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, will be the premiere of Christmas at the Movies. 5 of the songs are going to be available for everyone, and 5 of the songs are only going to be available to patrons of any tier. And we have some wonderful guests this year. We got Jacob and Sharia Summers, Brett Levick, Troy Thompson, Josiah Oliveira, Johnny Gerson, Evan Coons, Noah Cunningham, Aaron Fagan, Richard Bokish, Stephen Nance, Lauren Panter, Anna Marcoux, Reed Campbell, Chris Heisner, Jeremy Eden and his puppets, and also, of course, I'll be there. So mark your calendar, be there at the premiere December 11th, 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Be there in the comments. Go to patreon.com/MICAHMCCAW. Get the entire concert. I can tell you right now, I'm still editing it, but it is unbelievably cool, and I think we topped last year. So get ready for Christmas at the Movies. Oh, one last thing.
Okay.
Chloé Zhao edits her own movies.
Oh.
And this one, she did not have time with award season and how big of a production it was, but she was still heavily involved in the editing. So again, if you think this was not a Chloé Zhao movie, you're wrong.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Okay, so in this movie is Gemma Chan, who plays Cersei, who at the beginning of the movie, when she introduced herself, I swear she said sassy. And a couple other times, people said sassy. And then eventually I was just like, that can't be her name because everyone has mythological names. And then someone finally said Cersei. And I'm like, oh, okay. I think it was just an accent thing.
Yeah.
But I'm just like, sassy? And his name's Icarus? And her name's Sassy? That can't be it. Anyway, she is in Crazy Rich Asians, Let Them All Talk, Raise, Captain Marvel. That's right. She's in Captain Marvel to the point where she even has a name listed. Like, she's a character in that movie.
She gets killed in that movie.
Okay.
Now, can we sidebar?
Yeah.
What did you think of her performance?
She was so boring.
I
She
thought
was so boring.
she was actively bad.
Yeah. She seemed very not into it.
To me, it actually read more like she's giving it her best, I guess.
Oh, it just felt tired.
Now, a second question I have is, what characteristics does Cersei have besides her reliance upon her love to a human and then her love to another man? Does she have any other character traits?
No.
Okay, next person.
Okay. Richard Madden, who plays Icarus, he's in Game of Thrones. He's a Stark.
Yes,
I didn't know that.
I knew that.
Also, haven't really seen the show. He's also in Cinderella, the live action one.
The one that like just came out?
I think so, yeah. Well, no, not the one that just came out.
Oh,
But like
the
the
one
Disney
with
live action remake.
Emma Watson.
Nope. Emma Watson. She was
That's
in,
Beauty and the Beast. Oh, this is the Kenneth Branagh movie you're talking about?
Yeah, I just want to double check. It's got yeah, it is. And then he's also in Rocket Man, The Take, and 1917. And then Angelina Jolie is apparently in this movie.
Oh, well, can we go actor by actor here?
Oh, okay, for him. Yeah.
I think he's fantastic in this movie.
He's okay.
I think
fine.
he's great.
Okay.
I think he does actually have character traits.
Yeah.
He has some interest and stuff. There's a thing we're going to talk about that I think is really stupid that they did in regards to his character, but I'm going to save that.
Yeah.
But he actually...
Well, he actually has something to do in this movie.
He is supposed to be just a stoic person.
Yeah.
You know, and I think by the end of the movie, you see that there's a lot to him. So he gets a full pass for me.
Because there's a reason for him to be acting that way. You just
Yes.
don't know that. And then Angelina Jolie is apparently in this movie. I could not believe they got her for this movie.
Yeah.
I cannot believe she was in this movie. What more is there to say? She's in Tomb Raider. She's in Salt, Changeling, Maleficent, among a million other things. If anything, the only thing that makes sense to me is she does action.
Mm-hmm.
Like, she is known to be an action star. Why is she in this movie? And how much did she get paid?
And here's what I think is wild. So you hire Angelina Jolie, okay? And I think performance-wise, with what she is given, great. I think she does a great job.
I think acting, her performance is good, but why is she in here? Why is she here?
Yeah, and she's a total pro, so it's like it's
a slam dunk. Yeah.
But what are her characteristic traits? Okay, her traits are this. She has like a disease, so she's defined by her illness. That is what she is as a character.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
You're going to be seeing a pattern here, folks. And one of my main problems with the movies is the characters.
So then we have Salma Hayek, who's in Frida, Desperado, Fool's Rush, Savages, Hitman's Wife's Bodyguard, Like a Boss, among a million other things as well.
The verdict's out for me on Selma as far as anything I see her in. Salma?
Yeah.
Oh.
With an A.
I always thought it was Selma. But that's a town in Alabama. The verdict's out for me on her. I cannot figure out if I enjoy her in anything I see her in or not.
Unfortunately, I feel that way too. And I feel like every time I see that she's in something besides that movie Like a Boss, it's like, oh, that's cool that they got her. She's great.
Yeah.
But I don't know if I actually agree with myself.
Maybe I would need to watch Frida to really know.
Yeah, I've never seen that.
Her character has some traits and some interest. Yeah, I'll leave it at that.
Sure. And then Leah McHugh plays Sprite.
Yeah.
She's in The Lodge, American Woman, Into the Dark.
So Sprite.
Yeah. I thought that some of the worst writing was for this character, unfortunately.
Yes.
Down to the specific dialogue, specific stuff like that. In terms of performance, I think she's trying as hard as she can. Like, I don't necessarily fault the actor, because it's like, I would be into seeing her in more things. I think she has potential. The character and the way it was written, because there were so many she was the character that was supposed to point out the obvious.
Mm-hmm.
So she just had a lot of, this is going on. That just happened. We can't do that. That's just like all her character did.
Yeah, you do bring up a good point. It is just one of those things, and if I add in, your thought on it's more the material she's given, maybe weight that a little bit. But this definitely reeks of like, oh, this is a child performance. You know what I mean? Like when you're watching a movie and you're like, oh yeah, that was a kid.
Well, I just don't know how any kid could do better.
Well, it's just like we've talked about a lot. We live in this time where it's like an overabundance of amazing child
we're spoiled
actors
with good child actors. But what I really do think though, even if you get one that we know to be really good, currently, I don't know how they could do better.
Yeah. Well, it
really
is tough
don't.
because she is supposed to be playing this. You see
This
them as a
eternal
little
being
girl.
that's a child, but she's not a child.
Now, here's another huge issue I had with this movie, and this goes into the world and the rules and the world building. So this child comes up, we see them, all the other Eternals are adults.
Yeah.
This child is not. They don't explain why.
No.
There's one point where she is crying and she says, I was made like this. Don't you know what that's like? But they don't expound upon it.
No.
And it's just like, so you're establishing this rule where there are these eternal beings, and one of them is a child, and you don't think it's important to explain that fact?
And they're
That's
here for,
crazy
and the
to
only
me.
purpose they're here for is to defeat deviants. They're not here they literally say they are not to interfere with humans.
Yeah.
So why does it matter? Like, why do you? This is gonna sound weird. It's just like was there a child created for this purpose to best appeal to the humans in a time that maybe they would need to for a
That's
thing?
amazing, Jordan.
But no, because they weren't supposed to do anything like that.
Oh, yeah, you're right. But
maybe that's it. I don't know.
It's weird. And I remember in the Neil Gaiman run, they totally explain it because Sprite is a character in there. And it was not something I even batted an eye at because it made sense story-wise. I don't remember what the reasoning was, but we needed something. Don't you? I mean, I'm not being crazy here, right?
No, I agree. I actually was thinking during the movie that I would like to see her as Delirium. In Sandman.
In Sandman?
I think she's got the look.
Yeah, I could see that.
I've only seen her in this one thing, so I don't know if she's got the chops, because Delirium's probably one of the hardest characters to do.
Yeah.
But
any character in that is the hardest.
I was like, oh, I see that.
Yeah.
Cool. Maybe she'll be in the show.
You know who they should get to be the man who never dies? Would be
okay, yeah.
Would be Richard Jenkins.
Okay.
He'd be really good at that.
Yeah.
Anyway.
I'd love that. Moving on. Brian Tyree Henry plays Faustus?
Yes.
I'm
I'm cracking my knuckles getting ready for this rant.
He is in Atlanta, and if you haven't seen Atlanta, just stop the podcast and go watch that show and then come back. One of the best currently out there. He's also in If Beale Street Could Talk, Widows, Spider-Verse, Godzilla vs. Kong.
Now here's the deal. Brian, I love this man. He is fantastic.
Yeah. But
I think Hollywood is putting him in a trap.
Yeah.
So Atlanta, wonderful show. It's the best. I love Atlanta. And in that show, he is this rapper, and he is very much like all this crazy stuff is going on around him.
He's like becoming popular throughout the show.
And he's like trying to get like street cred at the same time and stuff. So it's this whole other world. It's fantastic.
Yeah.
It's a must-watch show. But he's kind of this guy. It's a comedy show, also very dramatic, but he's this guy who like funny things could happen around him. And he's just like, I don't know, this is crazy. I just want to go home. Like, I don't care about this funny stuff.
Yeah.
And he is funny in the show, but he's not like the comedian of the show.
Yeah. If anything, he's more like the straight man.
Yes. And this year he was in 2 movies, Godzilla vs. Kong and Eternals, where he plays a character who is like a nerd, because in Kong, he's like a conspiracy theorist podcaster. And in this movie, he's like the inventor.
Yeah.
That's his character trait, is he invents. And the other thing is both of those characters are like kind of in on the joke, and they're winking at the camera like, this is crazy, huh? Yeah. And I just think that's a complete misuse of his comedic talents.
Yeah.
You got to let the jokes roll onto him and him shrug them off because he's annoyed by them.
Yeah.
And I don't need him to be a scientific genius and everything, because it's 2 movies in a row. And there's going to be a third. They're going to make a trilogy of him being scientific genius guy. And I don't think that's what he's good at.
He's popping off right now, though. He's going to be in so many things. So I think he's too good to be put in a box. Sure, you might see him in another nerd role, but he will be beyond that. He is beyond that already because he's in Atlanta. So
yeah, and he is in Spider-Verse.
Yeah, he is, and I know what you're saying, and I agree with that.
Yeah,
but he will not be stuck.
But
he's too good.
Having said all that, I think his character is one of the few interesting characters in this movie. And he has a family, and he's really worried about that.
Well, he has stakes.
I think I just wanted some steaks.
Yeah.
So that's my Brian Tyree there.
Okay, and then
you're welcome on the podcast anytime.
Lauren Ridloff plays. I got to get the character name. Makari. She is in Walking Dead, Sound of Metal, If You Could Hear My Own Tune, See Through. I thought she was good. And
this is the deaf actress, right? Yes.
I thought she was good.
She was good.
But they forgot about her for about 30 minutes of this movie.
They truly did.
Because they're in the middle chunk of the movie, they're, whatever. So this movie is, you got these Eternals. They split up at some point. They got to get the band back together. And they're working on it. And therefore, there are like 3 characters that you don't see for 30 to 40 minutes. It feels to the point where they're like, we gotta go get so-and-so. And it's like, huh? Who are we talking about? And when they finally get to her, I'm like, genuinely forgot that this was a character.
Oh yeah. There's this framing device in the movie, and this is a very mild spoiler, but it's this framing device where like the Eternals are broken up, and that's like established right off the bat.
That's like the premise.
Yeah, and they're trying to get back together, and they go and visit one, and then it shows a flashback from like centuries earlier. That's like 10, 15 minutes long. Well, maybe more like 5 minutes long. And then they talk to that person, and then they go and they find another person. Yeah. And remember, there's like 7 Eternals.
Yeah.
And they keep just finding them, and then there's a flashback in between each one. By the 4th flashback, I was like, you've got to be kidding me.
I know, it's so boring. Anyway, and then we have Barry Kogan.
Oh, this is the
Do
Green
you know how
Knight
to say
guy?
his name?
I don't know how to say his
name. Okay. He is my guy. I love this guy so much. So he is in Dunkirk, and then he is also in Killing of a Sacred Deer, American Animals, Green Knight. I love this guy so much. And he's in everything, and I want him to be in more.
And he is everybody's favorite character, Druig, of course, from Eternals. Druig. And we all love Druig.
There was a point in this movie where I was just like, I'm so bummed he's in this because he's stuck. He can't be, there's no chance for him to be a cooler character later. Yeah. He is just
actually,
guy.
There is, because the lead of this movie is in Captain Marvel.
I know, but this is like, he's a lead in this movie.
I know.
So this is it. This is his chance.
He was
one of the more interesting characters.
He had interesting things to say and do.
But I felt bad for him. And of course, he doesn't feel bad for himself. He got a fat paycheck and he's in a Marvel movie. He's probably feeling pretty good. And
he got to work with a great director.
He did.
But what was really weird, though, was this whole movie, the audience didn't seem into it. Did you feel that?
Into him?
Into the movie.
No.
Because we've seen other Marvel movies where...
whenever there was laughing, this is when I knew that you were starting not to like the movie. You and I didn't laugh one time during this movie.
I think I chuckled at the beginning.
I think I chuckled at one part during the end about something.
Oh my gosh. We can't get started on the humor. But even the laughing was probably 10% what it usually is at a Marvel movie.
Yeah.
Because, like, remember the time we went and saw Thor Ragnarok, and it was like gangbusters.
Yeah.
The movie, people were like basically like throwing popcorn at the screen because they were like, I can't believe how good this is.
Yeah.
And in this movie, there was like one woman sitting close to me who was laughing. And toward the end, it's like the movie kind of won over some people because it beat them up hard enough, I think.
Yeah.
But for most of the movie, and like all the Kumail stuff, no one laughed during those scenes. Except for the one woman.
Oh, did I skip him?
But
I skipped him.
Well, before you do that, what was crazy, audience isn't reacting. And then when they said, hey, everybody, this is Druig, everyone stood up in a round of applause. And they just said, Druig, 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 we love you. Everyone just freaked out. And of course, everyone's favorite Marvel character, Druig.
Yeah. Gosh, I know for the longest time I'm like, so everyone's got like a mythological name of some kind that describes who they are.
Yeah.
And if anything like mythology is them. And
Yeah.
usually I'm kind of into that. I think that's fun. Like a history, like a historical fiction kind of thing.
Well, like in Loki, you find out he's DB Cooper. That's fun.
That kind of stuff is fun. I couldn't care less about this.
Me too.
It was
Me too.
so boring. So they kept saying...
I was actively angry about
they
it.
at one point kept saying like druid. I was hearing druid like a druid from like
D&D.
Like a scary wizard from Scotland or something, or Sweden or something. And then in subtitle it's shown Druig, and it's like, guys, come on, just call him Druid. Why do you got to slap his G on there and just pretend like that's not what you're going for?
And that's not. I mean, that's what the character was written.
I know.
But it is funny.
Yeah, it's just whatever. Okay, skipped him. Kumail Nanjiani. He plays, what's his character's name? Wait.
His character name is Druip. It's really close. I don't know why they did that.
Kingo.
Okay.
He is in The Big Sick, Stuber, Silicon Valley, MIB International. Yeah, he's in this movie.
I mean, I think he did what he was asked to do.
I think he did too.
I think it's very bad.
It's so hard during the action scenes when he was shooting things out of his finger not to imagine them shooting the movie.
Oh, I didn't even think about that, but that's
funny. And how
funny.
dumb it looks.
Yeah.
It's funny.
He has this whole thing.
Also,
and
he was they clearly wrote the script, first couple drafts, and then someone said, oh, guys, Kingo's not in the last fight scene, but everyone else is. And then, like, we don't have time to put him in.
So if you remember our Scream 3 episode, we talked about how...
mild spoiler, I guess, but who cares?
They literally, in Scream 3, forgot about someone that they had filmed and had to, like, call them back in to film a shot at the end of the movie.
Yeah.
And this movie felt like that happened to 2 or 3 characters. But in Scream 3, I think, even though it's really noticeable,
was it in Scream 3?
It's McLovin or McDreamy or whatever.
Oh, okay. No, I think it's McLovin.
But I think his was less noticeable than the ones in the Eternals.
Absolutely.
And I think another thing, and I'll have to save it for the plot, I think that Chloé Zhao, whether subconsciously or not, I think she was trying to subvert a lot of expectations.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of the things she chose to do to subvert them actually were just not good storytelling.
I think so too. We got to get through the actors, Micah. We got it. People are probably screaming.
They love it, Jordan. They love it.
Stop it. So then, last person, Ma Dong Seok, and I'm sure I didn't pronounce that correctly. He plays Gilgamesh. He is in Train to Busan, Outlaws, The Good, the Bad, the Weird, Asphalt, a ton of Korean movies, and I'm basically just reading the American titles.
Yeah. He was bad.
He was not great.
I guess, I mean, we have so many actors that I'm saying that they did a bad performance. It's got to be a director thing or a production thing, right?
Maybe.
Because, like, especially someone like Kumail, we've seen him act. We are fans of Kumail.
Yeah.
And I think he's pretty bad in this movie.
Yeah.
So I think it's the material. I think it might be the directing. I mean, I've only seen one Chloé Zhao movie, but it doesn't have a whole lot of dialogue. So I don't know how good she is at getting dialogue out of actors, because the dialogue was stiff in this.
It was so bad.
But there was stuff in this movie, like when you looked at a shot, and I think particularly with Gilgamesh, when you saw him, if he was not delivering a line, it looked like he was lost and didn't know what was going on.
Yeah. And
he was like overreacting to things, and
it
was very weird.
It was too many people, too many cooks.
Yeah.
And then just to touch on a couple people, not get into it, Kit Harington plays Dane, the boyfriend,
yes.
Game of Thrones. And then also, I'm also bummed about this, but there's definitely a chance for this person to just slide by and no one knows about it, / it's not going to affect his career negatively in any way, or he can come back for something better in the future. Bill Skarsgård is a voice at some point in the movie. I think he's like the deviant voice.
Okay.
And it's just like, come on. Really?
Yeah, you
Why? Like, what draws he?
I know
And then that
he
being
would be
said,
such a cooler
not
like
that he doesn't
Doctor
have a
Strange
bad
villain or something.
voice or anything. Like, I don't think I've heard like stuff that I've seen him in. He's usually brooding and silent type, so I haven't heard him talk a lot. But like, it's just like maybe just get a voice actor for that part because the person talked for like 10 minutes. No, the person talked for maybe 5 minutes runtime, maybe probably less than that. So I just think that that's weird when stuff like that happens.
Yeah. What is cool though is so there's this like a celestial being that
What's his name?
I don't remember.
I want to look it up because it's.
I think it starts with an H, but like
Hiroshima.
And they actually did hire a voice actor to do his voice. And that is pretty cool because we've complained about that a lot.
I liked it.
I did. I am just kind of tired of like low voices for bad guys.
I know, but I'm kind of a sucker for it too, and I think they know that.
Well, I mean, I always try to imagine like what would a high voice be like on a robot, you know, like a big robot like that.
Yeah.
I know he's not a robot, but and it's hard to imagine, but I feel like, you know, in Avengers Age of Ultron, the fact that it's James Spader and not this low, deep voice is pretty interesting and fun.
Right. Yeah.
Although that goes against what we said about voice actors, but
But he was doing something. He wasn't just doing James Spader.
He was.
I think he was. But I think he was acting.
He was acting. Yeah.
He wasn't. What I'm saying is he wasn't just talking.
I would have loved.
He gave a performance.
Yes, and I would have loved to have been on set when he's acting and he has a 10-foot pole strapped to his back that has a tennis ball on top, and he's acting.
You know what I've heard about him that I'm always wondered if it's true? Apparently, he's one of those people. All he needs to do is look at a page and he knows his lines by heart.
Nice.
Like he has perfect memory.
That's pretty cool.
And that's just I gotta know if that's true.
I think it is. I've heard that.
Crazy.
Yeah. So you good? You got it?
Yeah. I'm just confirming the Celestial's name.
Oh.
But I can't find it on the IMDb at all. Arishem.
Who plays it since you've gone to all that?
Oh, I guess I could have done that. David K.
Okay. Now I think it's time to take our spoiler break and get into the plot of this movie.
Let's do it.
Here we go.
Spoiler alert! 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 Spoiler alert!
So the movie begins, and there is a crawling scroll that says...
Did that hurt your eyes like mine?
No.
Okay, then it's just me.
It says, in the beginning, there were, celestials, and there's, it's explaining...
Well, no. This is how it started. In a galaxy far, far away.
I was wondering what you're gearing up to. But there's all this text, and it's a lot.
Yeah.
And when I saw that, Jordan... this might surprise you, but I thought, okay, let's do this.
I kind of thought it too. It's like, we're going to get into lore, baby. Let's get it.
Because, and I think this has been a good thing about the MCU, but they've tried really hard to be like, no, we're going to deliver exposition as we go, or we're going to do like an animated sequence to show you this information. And this one's like, no.
They still do that, though.
There's too much information. We just got to kick you off with this, and then we're jumping into the story. And I'm like... Yeah. There's going to be a lot of rules, crazy world building. Let's go. This is cool. And then we go to Mesopotamia.
Comes to a screeching halt.
Well, no, we're okay.
I'm just kidding. I'm kidding.
We're okay. We'll let you know when Jordan drops out and when I drop out.
Yeah.
But we show up in Mesopotamia, 5,000 years BC, and these deviants attack Earth, and the Eternals come and they fight them.
Mm.
Okay? Cool. I'm tracking. We're doing just fine.
They save the community. And they Circe gives a little boy a dagger that she like makes it more pretty.
Yeah. Now, it's just so hard in this movie because they set up a rule for themselves that they break every single scene.
I know.
And
right?
I think that might be my number one complaint with the movie. Because...
And they say it a lot. Like, it's a big rule.
Lot. They say that the Eternals are not to interfere with human conflict. And then there are other scenes where they expound upon it. So when I hear that, I go, okay, the Eternals have to live in the shadows. They have to all like live out in the woods and be secret and then only come when the deviants attack. Because there's even a scene where the boyfriend finds out that Cersei's is a Eternal, and he goes, why didn't you do anything about Thanos? And they go, well, we can't interfere with human affairs, even though that was cosmic. And to me, I'm like, whatever. I don't need a huge reason for this. But what's weird is they say that, but then they do something like this at the beginning of the movie. She takes his rock dagger, turns it into some sort of metal that's probably more powerful.
That hasn't been discovered yet in some way or hasn't been fashioned to be that.
Exactly. So she just affected all of human history.
The inventor has probably done the most damage when he says that he has done all this. He's probably right, because there is a scene where he's like wanting to introduce steam engines to
this
people.
Is the scene that breaks the movie.
Me too. And it's like, I think we're in Babylon at this point, and he like wants to introduce like the steam engine. They're like, no, that's too fast for humans. And he's like, okay, what about a plow? They can plow their fields. And it's like, wait, but you can't invent things for them. They have to either die trying or do it themselves, invent it themselves. You can't, as a god, do it for them because you said that you can't. So don't do it.
Well, and then later in the movie, he feels really betrayed because, once you find out that Arishem is actually trying to get the Earth's population up to a size to where the celestial that is within Earth explodes and kills everyone.
Yeah.
So Arishem tells them not to get involved in conflicts, but is the implication that he's secretly hoping that they are going to help advance the humanity so that it will quickly birth?
Well, they basically make that point at one point where Arishem might have even said it, where it's like, you've helped them.
Yeah.
And because of your protection and your help that you've offered, you've allowed them to grow to the correct population. So it's like, okay, so do you want them to interfere or not interfere? Just say it.
But I think, like, there's maybe something there. I mean, I think that gets way too convoluted. But I really do think that the writers of this movie are saying, like, no, they don't get involved with conflicts. That is the rule they establish.
I know.
And they break it in every single scene.
Well, so let's go back. So the Eternals are created, and they're on their spaceship. And like they are all like seeing each other for the first time.
Yeah.
Like we're back at the beginning of Earth, basically. And like we said, it starts with 5000 BC in Mesopotamia.
Yeah.
And then we fast forward to present day.
Yeah.
And this was so confusing to me too, but it was early enough in the movie that I was like, Jordan, sometimes movies just have to do things that don't make sense in order to serve the story, the greater good.
Okay, yeah.
So just like get over it. And I was able to get over it until immediately after the movie started talking about the movie. But we cut to present day, and we're in downtown London.
Yeah.
And Cersei is taking a picture of that dagger that is now an artifact, which is crazy. And it's like, oh, kind of cool, whatever.
But also, it's breaking the rule.
It is. But we've established that. But she's like taking a picture of it, and she's like looking through filters on her phone to post it, I guess, which I thought was weird.
But
not too weird.
But it was also like, it's like, wait, this is a 5-second shot to see her scroll through Instagram? Huh?
It was a little like no one uses phones who's in the production of this movie or whatever. I don't know. It's just one of those weird things where it's like people do this all the time, and it's like they do, but not like that. So then she gets her alarm goes off on her phone, and she's like, oh crap, I'm late. She goes down into the underground, the subway, to go to some school where she's like a guest speaker. And the teacher is like her boyfriend, Jon Snow. I know that's not his name, but that's all I know him as.
Well, his acting name, or his real life name is Kit Harington.
Okay.
But you can call him Jon Snow. I think that's fine.
Dane. But she's late to guest speak at a school for like children, like a middle school.
Well, and it's
I don't get that.
I know
like that's not good enough. You got to show me what her morning was like. Why was she late right now?
It's like I guess they're trying to show she's relatable or something, but it's weird because
no one's relatable. I'll just break that one right now.
But it's like, oh, this is like a total Peter Parker moment.
But
if it was Peter Parker, it'd be like, oh crap, there's a burglar. I got to stop this burglar.
It felt kind of like inexperienced writing, where it's just
Yeah.
like, oh, I'm late to this thing where I have to talk. And then she's in this classroom and she says, what's an apex predator? And like the kids are answering and the scene's like 10 seconds long.
Yeah.
It's so short. And an earthquake happens. And
she uses her powers.
She uses her powers to save a kid.
Also, by the way, as far as the rule goes for no human conflicts, she is teaching human children.
I know.
Okay. That's one of the most formidable things that can happen to a human is being taught.
That doesn't quite make sense. I mean, if anything, though, like that I think you can bend it a little bit, the rule to teach, because you've experienced it, so you would be a good teacher.
Yeah.
Of just recounting history, and it does kind of make me think of like Wonder Woman being like an artifacts person, like she's a historian. Like that makes sense to me.
Yeah.
For someone who's immortal.
Yeah.
But then we cut to like a nightclub.
Well, and just the reason I'm being so nitpicky is this rule, if they were like no human conflict and they just kind of were like, we got to stay out of wars, and they kind of left it at that, I'd be fine with that.
Honestly,
but the fact that they keep circling around to it and being like, no, you can't interfere at all, but you can show them a plow. And then they're like, no, you're not allowed to be around them, but you're okay to have a family. But you're allowed to this. But it's like, just don't make the rule this. Like this is a bad rule for this universe because you're breaking it every scene.
All the time.
Okay.
All the time. So then we're like in this nightclub.
Yeah.
And it's Jon Snow's birthday. And
the scene also just felt strange.
It felt so strange. It's all so weird. And a lot of it's just, I think they don't know how to set up a movie. But Cersei is with Jon Snow. I'm laughing because I keep calling him Jon Snow.
That's fine.
And it's his birthday, and for his birthday, she gets him like his family crest on this ring from like the medieval times, whatever. And it's like that feels like a Wonder Woman moment of like, I have access to this thing. Meanwhile, Sprite is there, and what she can do is like create mirages.
Yeah.
For lack of a better way of saying it. So even to herself. So she makes herself appear as an older person.
Yeah.
But she's a child.
Yeah.
And then she like interrupts Jon Snow and Cersei making out. And they gotta go. I guess. I don't know why, but they gotta go.
And then even this is weird. Now we're getting maybe a little nitpicky, but it's almost like now that I know that the movie's bad, when I look back, I'm like, oh, even those scenes I thought I was okay with are bad. For some reason, Jon Snow is walking like in front of them, and Sprite and Cersei's are having a private conversation.
That was so bad. The conversation was so bad because I've heard it a million times in the movie. You know, you got to tell them the truth about yourself someday. I know. I'm just waiting for the right time.
Meanwhile, he's 6 feet in front of them. They're talking at full volume.
And I hate, we've heard this a million times, therefore we don't have to do it anymore, where it's just like, you're going to have to confront your issues at one point if you're ever going to want to have a relationship. If you really like them, you got to tell them.
Yeah.
And it's just like, do this in a different way or don't do this at all.
And so then a deviant attacks them. They thought they'd killed them all.
Yeah.
Deviant attacks them. And when it does so, Sprite comes up with this great idea of making mirages everywhere to confuse the deviant. And
when that was happening, I'm like, nothing's happening right now.
I was really confused because
the blocking wasn't very good.
I did, and they're just kind of walking around, and they're not trying to escape.
No,
they're just kind of walking around, and then the deviant just like moves.
Well, then, and then she goes, like, it knows where we are.
And I was like, what is going on?
I know.
And then this bus flips.
And so Cersei can change matter.
Yeah, and so she turns it into rose petals.
Yeah. And Micah thought that she killed everyone in the bus, but I'm pretty positive that it was just the bus driver that who like was in the bus and he survived.
I would like to see just that one scene to see if that's true.
I mean, I wouldn't put it past them.
Because they make a big deal about how... Because this movie is already showing that it can't follow rules, that it sets up for itself. And in that scene, I just was like... Because later she says, I can't do things that are... that have a life in them. I can't change them.
Yeah.
I can only change, like, material things.
Inanimate objects.
Yeah, inanimate objects. And so I was confused by that scene. But maybe I just thought that a bus would have more than one person. Yeah.
So this is all happening, and then Icarus swoops in,
Yeah.
and he has laser beam eyes and he can fly, and he starts fighting the deviant.
Yeah.
And you find out like Icarus and Cersei like have a past, they used to have a relationship, and so it's like, oh, kind of tension that he's back, I guess, but we'll deal with this later. And he starts fighting the deviant, and then just kind of like pushes the deviant into the water, and then we resume with our night.
Very weird.
Come on, guys, we're not idiots. We know that if something is thrown into water, it's not dead. And
was that
I
where
was so mad right
so
there.
right there? Wow. So you're 20 minutes in.
I'm so mad right now.
Yeah.
When I was watching the movie yesterday, I was probably just like, really? That's it?
Yeah.
That was so short. And like, we just saw it go into water. It emerged from the water. It swims. So it's not dead.
Yeah.
And your sole purpose for being created and being sent to this planet was to kill them. I don't care about Jon Snow anymore. He can go fart in the wind or something. You gotta kill.
Fart in the wind.
Know. You gotta kill this thing. That's the only thing that matters anymore.
Yeah.
But they just let it go into the river.
Yeah. And then they travel to South Dakota for the first time.
No, not quite yet.
Oh, okay.
Because her and Jon Snow got to talk again.
Yes.
And he's like, so this is why you won't move in with me. And he's like, so how long did you and Icarus together? And it's like, oh, like 5,000 years. And he's like, oh, I guess that would be a long-term relationship. And then she, obviously has not been very forthcoming with him for all these reasons. And then she just hugs him and says, I'm sorry. I have to go. Yeah. And that's how she says it.
And here's another thing that's weird. Until the post-credits scene, the last post-credit scene, I was like, why did they hire Kit Harington for this? Because Game of Thrones is, for better or worse, one of the biggest shows ever made.
And he was one of the biggest characters, right?
He was one of the guys. Like, in an ensemble show, he's like one of the guys that you remember specifically.
I've seen only part of the first season, and that's one of the few characters that I know.
Yeah. So the whole movie, I'm like, why is he in this?
Yeah.
Like, he could get a bigger gig than this, I think.
Yeah.
But then at the end of the movie, they set up that he's this character called Black Knight, or he's like heir to this character, Black Knight. And then you hear Mahershala Ali's voice say, are you sure you're ready for this? So that is the first appearance of Blade in the MCU.
So is Black Knight a bad guy? Because
no.
They made me believe that sword is like evil.
Or maybe he is. I don't know.
Maybe he is heir, like whoever was the Black Knight was evil.
Actually, I did take a little note. The original Black Knight's descendant and the supervillain Black Knight's nephew.
Supervillain.
He inherited a mystical sword that carried a curse and took the Black Knight name to help restore honor.
Oh.
So the original Black Knight was a villain.
Okay, that sounds like a cool story.
Then this guy is like reclaiming the honor, and he has had he's been a longtime member of the Avengers, various incarnations, as well as the Defenders, Ultra Force, Heroes for Hire, and MI-13.
Okay, I'm pretty here for that. That sounds cool.
Yeah, what was cool about that post-credit scene, though, is I was like, as much as I'm personally not much of a fan of like medieval stuff, I was kind of like, this might look pretty interesting in this universe.
I'm into it.
And then once I heard that it was Mahershala Ali's voice, Chloé Zhao confirmed, because no one knew whose voice that was.
I couldn't get a bearing on it.
Yeah.
Because he sounded different.
And we know he's going to be Blade. I was like, okay, Blade, Black Knight, that's interesting. Throw in Ghost Rider and you got yourself a little stew.
Are they going to do a Ghost Rider?
I hope so. They got to do a Ghost Rider. Yeah. That would be cool. And if they're getting into, because that's kind of like a little bit more darker material.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know about Black Knight. That sounds like darker material.
Yeah.
But Blade certainly is. Throw in Ghost Rider.
I just hope Blade is cool.
It's going to be cool. It will. So, then they travel to South Dakota, a place that they go to in this movie a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Chloe must be from South Dakota, right?
Maybe. I
think they go to South Dakota a bunch in Nomadland too, I think.
I don't know about that.
And they find Ajak, everybody's favorite character, Ajak.
Who was Salma Hayek.
She's the leader, and she's been killed by a deviant.
Yeah.
Oh no. Now we got to get the crew back together. And
her sphere thing that allows her to talk with Erishim goes into Cersei.
Yeah.
So she is now like able to talk to him.
Yes.
So basically, like Ajak chose her to become the new leader.
Yeah.
Which is just like, oh gosh, are you serious?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then after that,
we go to a flashback. I think we go to Babylon.
I think it's Babylon.
I think it's Babylon. So like we're on the outer walls of it, and there are deviants, and they're fighting them, and it's the whole crew together because it's a flashback. And the action is just kind of whatever for me, I have to say.
It is.
It was a little hard to follow.
Yeah.
And maybe I don't know if that comes down to like the animation. I don't really know. It just was kind of confusing for me.
I think the powers don't look cool. I think
so
that's
too.
a big problem.
I think a big issue with that for me is they just like don't do it to their strengths because they're kind of boring, and they shouldn't be. One character can change the properties of an object. That's cool. And she changes them into like cool things, but they're just never very interesting to me.
Yeah.
And like another character creates like illusions. And it's just I just don't think they ever make him interesting enough to me. And like another character is just really strong, and that's just kind of boring at this point because they all are.
Yeah.
And then another dude has laser beam for eyes, and it's like, I don't know, I've seen it.
Yeah.
And I know that that's me just criticizing a comic book.
But still, I mean,
like, it's just, I don't think that they like played to the superhero's strengths.
And I think like if there's any Marvel characters to adapt really heavily, it can be these characters. Nobody is like, I'm a diehard Eternals fan.
Yeah.
There's nobody out there like that.
Yeah.
You know, you got your X-Men's, you got your Fantastic Fours, all the other characters, but nobody's like defending Eternals except for people who just love Jack Kirby and are like, well, it's Jack Kirby, so I love it. Like by default. So at this
I gotta say,
juncture,
I think the only parts that were interesting were Angelina.
I know.
It's like, oh, okay, she's an action star. They like let her do stuff.
Yeah. She does cool stuff. I like her look.
I like her look, and I like her weapon. I think that the design is cool.
Mm-hmm.
But all she is made to do is fight.
Yep.
Like character written wise. So.
And again, she's defined by an illness that she has.
Yeah, and for most of the movie, she can't fight.
Yeah. Well, and so what's weird is like, so speaking about like, we might jump around a little bit here, but like the illness thing is weird to me because in the scene, and I think it might have been this scene or maybe earlier where I was like, uh-oh, I mean, this is really not doing it for me.
Yeah.
Was when they were like, oh, she's mind weary. And I'm like, I don't know what mind weary means.
Yeah.
And then immediately they go, it's because she has so many memories and they're all coming to the surface. She can't figure out who she is. And then immediately after that, they're like, but here's the great thing. We can just erase your memories.
Yeah.
So it's like right off the bat, they establish something and then they establish the solution without letting you sit in it at all.
Yeah.
And isn't that in the Babylon scene? Because then she's like, no, I don't want to be.
This is like Tecnocti clan, Mexico or Central America.
Oh.
Aztecs.
There are so many flashbacks I don't even remember.
It's not Mayans. It's the other one, or maybe Aztecs are these. I can't remember. It's the T word that's hard for me to pronounce.
Yeah.
With the really cool pyramids, like square ones. And yeah, so that's where that happens. What was I going to say about it? Yeah, it's just because it is interesting, an idea of like she's going crazy because basically the weight of all of the lives that she's lived.
Which we don't know that yet.
Well, no. But like, let's say that's not even a thing. Just the thousands of years they've been alive. Her mind is like going crazy because that's not, does that make sense? Like she can't handle.
Yeah. Oh, I like the idea.
Many centuries of being alive. And so.
But it goes from, she goes crazy.
Oh, it's almost like as if she has all this guilt. Or maybe what she has done or hasn't done, because apparently they're not supposed to interfere with human conflict. And she's probably seen a lot of people die.
Yeah.
So like all of this like guilt has been sitting on her. But like you said, they're just like, yeah, but we can fix it.
Yeah, and then she's like, no, I don't want to do that. And then instead of it being like, well, then what are we going to do? Immediately they're like, okay, well, we just got to keep a close eye on her and just be prepared to kill her if we have
to. And then another dude's like, okay, I'm leaving.
Yeah.
And it's like, can he do that though? Like, you were about to erase her memories, and then this guy's leaving. And I guess I would just assume that either you're going to have to kill him because he's the one that controls people's minds, and you're just going to let him leave.
And he says, I'm going to control people's minds because I'm not going to keep up with it.
He literally said, I'm going to go be a god.
Yeah.
And left. And they did nothing.
And he pulls up on his Apple Music. He pulls up on Yeezus track, I think 3 or 4, I Am a God by Kanye West. He bumps it, puts on his Dre headphones in, 500 BC and walks down.
He's omnipresent, so he has access to those parts of history and brings them back to the past and to the future.
Yeah.
But he's all things at once.
Which was actually one of the more interesting details of the movie.
Yeah.
But, yeah, so, like, Druig, he just goes, yeah, I'm just going to control people's minds. And they're all like, okay. I know we're not supposed to do anything with human conflict. And that should have obviously been a fight right there where they go, no, we can't allow you to do that.
And then this was the resolution of that whole part, is Ajax saying, you're all free to go.
Yeah, we killed all the deviants. It's fine.
So go. Pip, pip. It's time to live your life. And it's like, but we can't live a life. No, but you are supposed to live a life now. So just go.
And so, okay.
It's just weird because, like, their whole lives are, like, kind of a lie because they were always, like, promised to kind of, like, go back to their planet. And then they find out that planet doesn't exist. And it's like, well, shouldn't you have been, like, distracting them when the deviants were done? Like, maybe let them like they were given this divine purpose to defeat all the deviants, which they apparently did.
Apparently.
But then they're like, okay, so what do you do next? Well, you can't go home.
You don't have to go home, but you can't stay here.
But truly, it's like, so what? They just have to, like, roam the earth?
Yeah.
But they can't help anybody?
Yeah.
But they're sentient and they have feelings and they're moral beings?
And if they had stuck to no human conflict, I think that would have been pretty interesting. If she's like, let's break up right now, we have to. And if the deviants ever come back, we'll get back together, whatever. And then they all have to live in isolation. But they're like, nope, we're just hanging out, doing our own things. We have families now. It doesn't make any sense to me.
I don't get it.
Now, so that is like the first 2 hours of the movie. Now we're going to talk about the next 2 hours of the movie because there's like 18 hours to this movie. It's so stinking long. Well, I started fidgeting for the last hour, and I don't fidget in movies.
Yeah.
And here's the other thing, folks. I kind of had to go to the bathroom, just kind of, and I kind of just wanted to leave for a couple of minutes just to kind of clear my head. And I thought, but this is a podcast. I can't leave. So I just stayed in there. But there was a moment where I was like, I could just leave. I really wouldn't miss anything. But for you guys, I couldn't do it. So please sign up for our Patreon. This month we're doing Scooby-Doo. Next month we're doing Scooby-Doo 2 Monsters Unleashed. And I got the Christmas show coming up. And let's get to 50 patrons this year. What do you think? Please.
I think so.
If you've been wondering, if you've been thinking about it, sign up for Patreon. It's in the episode notes, patreon.com/Micah McCaw. Please, please, please. And please rate us and review us on Apple.
Okay, so where are we at in this movie? So we kind of skipped around. So we were in Babylon, and then I think we go back to the present. And they go to who first? Oh, they go to Angelina Jolie and the other guy. No. They go to Kumail.
Now, this is where it lost me.
Yeah.
They do this Bollywood dance number. Kind of fun. And I was like, that's when I chuckled. Because I was like, okay, this is something. This is visually interesting. I could get into this. He has, because he wanted to avoid human conflict, he becomes one of the most influential Bollywood actors of all time. Mm-hmm. And he continues to be like the grandson and the grandson and the grandson. And they're all the same person. But at least he's not interfering with human history. Wait a second. But their whole thing is they're like, we hired Kumail Nanjiani. We got to make him do jokes all the time. And he's supposed to be an egotistical actor in the movie. And not a single thing he says lands. Not a one.
It just wasn't funny to me. But I was pretty checked out by this point.
But the guy who follows him around and does the documentary camera, I think having reflected on the movie a little bit,
he was funny.
I'm giving him the best performance of
He
the
was
movie.
cute. Let me look him up. I think when I was watching the movie, because I was pretty soured on the whole thing,
Yeah.
and just was just like, well, at least that guy's funny, even though I'm like not laughing at any of it.
Yeah.
Harish Patel, that's who it is. He's also in Run Fat Boy Run. And then he's also in Today's Special, 4 Weddings and a Funeral, but not the one. I think it's like a remake.
Wait, what year?
2019 is a show.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he's in a lot of stuff actually.
Cool.
Nothing I've seen, but he's in a lot of stuff.
Yeah. Well, he was actually really good in this. And so they collect Kumail. There's some really cringy like documentary stuff that they do where Kumail's trying to be like, I'm filming us, the Eternals, and there's a lot of jokey stuff. And I mean, I'll just say it. And this is okay. This is okay. Not every director can do everything. I don't think Chloé Zhao is a comedic director. That's okay.
Mhm.
That's okay. They don't all have to be. And actually, I think no. I think this movie could have lightened up even a little bit more. It was a little too self-serious, even with all the jokes.
Yeah, and they were just like, because they had to round everyone up, they had to explain things so many times. So like, they kept having to explain that Ajax was dead, and then so they get him.
That's true, yeah.
They fly to wherever Angelina Jolie and the other guy have been living for the past hundreds of years, and she's still, I guess, crazy. Like she's still experiencing an illness, and he's still protecting her. And it was during this scene that Cersei has a conversation with Arishem.
Yeah.
About everything. He tells her everything. So not only does he reinforce why they were sent here, he also tells them that their purpose was to remain here even after the deviants were gone. Okay, no, I was a little lost on this.
Uh-huh.
So Celestials basically created the universe, but Celestials are not even eternal. They perish at some point. Therefore, more have to be created every thousands, millions of years. And then at one point,
when they perish, they create like a universe, I think, is the idea.
Something like that. So, but at one point, and maybe it was this Celestial, he like created deviants. It sounded like population control, or it was to encourage evolution.
But then he said something about it being an accident.
But there was like a flaw in them, and I don't really understand what the flaw is other than they just kill people.
Also, there was a shot where like it's showing that happening. And I don't know if you noticed this, but the deviant, there's these 2 people standing there.
The person just standing there and watching. Yeah.
Yeah. The deviant attacks the other person. And then the other person that's with the attacker is just watching the deviant for a while. And then she takes off running, like yelling. But it's like way past when.
Maybe it was shock, okay?
No.
It's an alien species. We don't know how they react to things. So I guess that's how it was explained. Therefore, the Eternals had to be created to keep the deviants in check, which just sounds so convoluted. And it's like, and I think it's one of those things where it's like the Celestial, while creating things, is not necessarily all powerful.
Uh-huh.
So it can't just like by a snap of its fingers eradicate deviants. Like it basically, to solve that problem, he has to create another one, which is the Eternals.
Yeah.
And then to go even further, Eternals are created to control deviants, and they've been doing it on planets for millions of years.
Mm-hmm.
Why does it keep happening? For one, the deviant thing. Why does that keep happening? I don't get it. And then he explains that when planets are created, basically there's a baby celestial in the core. And when the Earth reaches a certain population, it gives the celestial enough energy to like birth itself out of the planet.
Yeah.
That part, I thought that was cool.
Here's where I think it's weird.
Yeah.
So this is skipping toward the end and the ideology of this movie. So the movie is kind of talking about global warming and climate change, because they talk about how like the Earth's core is heating up, the Earth is heating up. That will allow the Earth to be destroyed, and then this celestial to create a new universe. Okay, there's something there. There's some stuff there. I like the ideas. Okay. But then they follow it out with, they freeze the Celestial at the end of the movie. And then they have this line where they say, we did it. We froze the Celestial. And I think they said something like the Earth's temperature's fine now. So it's like this movie kind of brings up...
Oh, they do say that?
I'm pretty sure they said something to that effect, which made me think like, so you're saying the solution to the climate crisis is nothing?
This is where I got on this movie. So they explain all of this stuff. And then the Eternals are like, we can't let that happen. These people they're innocent. They don't deserve this. Hold on. I'm going to cough.
Don't cough. Please don't cough. She's still coughing, but I don't want to edit that out.
I'm not enjoying this movie at this point.
Yeah.
Clearly. And they're explaining all these things, and they're saying, we can't let this happen. And I'm just thinking, who are you to say this shouldn't happen? Apparently, this has been happening for millions of years. Therefore, it should probably happen because he said, the Arishem said, if this doesn't happen, worlds and universes will die. This is the order of things. So by them saying, we will not allow this to happen, you're just damning the universe, right? Yeah. Is that what they're saying?
Well, and what's crazy is there's a point where, and what makes me more frustrated is with the climate change and what you're discussing right here, like overpopulation.
Yeah.
And then this potential universe happening. They're bringing them up. And those are like fascinating ideas. Yeah. And I think even keeping it within the MCU and the world, you can make some pretty intense statements about all those things.
Yeah.
But then at the end of the movie, they go, no, it's fine.
Well, they don't ever say, like, there's got to be another way. Well, I think they kind of say that, but there's no solution.
Here's what I think is insane. So they're trying to discuss how they're going to do this. And then I think Cersei says, well, or they say you need to turn the Celestial and kill it. And she says, there's got to be another way. Is there a way we can successfully, like, make it come out of the earth without destroying it? And they just go, no. But it's like, that's how movies work. You figure out that option.
And this also doesn't make sense because the Arishem said this, man. He said, if this doesn't happen, worlds and universes and galaxies will die. So then all of this happens, heroes succeed. That Celestial does not come out of the earth, therefore the earth is not destroyed. And at the end of the movie, they're like arrested by Arishem, and he's like, I have decided to spare this earth, but your memories will decide on if it's worth it and if it will really be spared. So it's like, okay, so now he's just taking it back what he said? The earth doesn't have to be destroyed in order for the universe to continue on existing?
And I would say,
no sense.
Without even going outside of the Marvel universe, they had a situation like this where a mad titan came and he snapped his fingers and half of the population of everything went away.
Yeah.
Okay. Crazy. And then in Avengers Endgame, it's been 5 years, and Tony Stark has a daughter. And he goes and he joins the team after being reluctant, and he says, we can only do this if we bring everything back, but we don't lose what we got. I can't lose what we have. Because he doesn't want to lose his daughter.
Yeah.
And so the movie has to creatively and well written figure out how do we bring everybody back and not lose the 5 years. They can't snap and go back to when they were fighting Thanos.
Yeah.
And that's what they needed to do with this movie. You can't set up these stakes and then just be like, well, actually, it doesn't matter. Yeah. Never mind. And I know maybe you're saying, well, at the end, they arrest the main character. But I'm like, yeah, but
I'd never cared about them in the first place. Also, you never presented that there were some kind of like legal system.
Yeah. It's just, again, this movie brings up rules and doesn't follow them.
No.
Now, here's something that drove me nuts. Again, this movie's shot really nicely, looks nice. But here's something that drove me nuts. And in our Scream 4 episode, we actually talked about this. Our guest, Mike almost down. Our guest, Tom Lorenzo, he talked about how, or maybe it was Mike, I think they were both talking about this, but they talked about how in movies, modern movies, a lot of times they have a twist in the movie, but it's not something that you could have figured out because it wasn't set up.
Yeah.
And this movie does that. And I think it's really stupid how it does it. Because the main character, Icarus, at some point, there's been no information that if you rewatch this movie, you go, oh.
No. No gun in the closet.
There's no gun in the closet or in the drawer that Icarus is actually working on behalf of this higher order. But he turns on all of them, and they treat it like it's this big twist. And when that happened, I thought, how come they didn't just tell us this right away? So the whole time we were like, uh-oh, he's going to break.
Don't trust that guy. Oh my gosh, they're trusting that guy. They want him to be his leader.
It would have given so much more intensity. But instead, they don't do it. You find out he killed Salma Hayek. And it's just kind of like, okay, why treat this like a twist? I didn't know any of this information. This is all new information to me. It's not a twist. Don't treat it like it's a twist.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that drove me nuts too.
Yeah. Okay, wait. So we had the big exposition dump.
Yeah.
And then everyone's like, okay, we're with you on making sure this doesn't happen, to which we've already explained how that just doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
And then where do they go next? I think it's another flashback. I think this is when we go to Teknok, the city where all of the people, there's a war going on.
Oh, I thought we already talked about
that.
Kinda.
We did. I'm just saying I think that's what happens next.
Okay.
I think.
Yeah.
Maybe not. And then they go to the Amazon.
And by the way, Kit Harington is just like nowhere to be seen. He's on like a FaceTime call at one point. And he's
on a FaceTime call in the Amazon rainforest.
Yeah, that's true.
So we're at one point, they're in there and she gets a call from him, and Kumail's like, how are you getting service in here? Because I'm not getting anything. And it's like, she shouldn't be getting anything.
Yeah.
They're in the Amazon rainforest. And then she has a crystal clear FaceTime call with him. Crazy.
Yeah.
Whatever. So they're in the Amazon rainforest because Druig is here and he's like kind of established a cult.
Yeah.
And
that could have been cool if they did anything with it.
Yeah, but they didn't. So he has been like here mind controlling people, I guess.
Yeah.
And they're trying to recruit him. And this is kind of what I was saying earlier. So now that we have this big exposition dump and we all know what's going to happen, they have to meet up with Druig, Faustus, and then Mara something.
Mm-hmm.
They have to like 3 more times. We have to see a moment where that character is like, so you're saying that the world's going to end?
This movie's 2 hours and 37 minutes. Let's wrap this up.
Yeah. It's just so much time wasted. So then they're trying to like recruit him back. I don't really remember his response to the whole thing, but then deviants show up and there's a fight scene.
Yeah, this is the Revenant scene.
Yes.
And she turns a deviant into a tree.
She does.
That was nice shot. And that was cool. That looked like maybe it was a practical effect. That tree, it looked cool.
Gilgamesh dies.
Yeah.
And one deviant has been like able to like suck people's powers out of them.
Yeah, which will lead into the twist with Icarus.
Yes.
I guess.
So then like this guy though at this point becomes like a being, like humanoid. It can talk now.
Uh-huh.
And it leaves. We find out more later. I'm just trying to remember.
Yeah. I mean, I think we can kind of blaze through and get to the end, right?
Okay, well, so they get Druig and then they go to then they're going to get Faustus, and he is living in Chicago. He's got a family. But there was a mini flashback before that where
his husband doesn't know how to throw a football, which is always funny.
It's always funny to watch actors do sports things.
Yeah.
Who are not athletic.
Yeah.
But before that, we're in Hiroshima, right when the atomic bomb went off.
Yeah.
That was just like kind of crazy to me. I don't know what I mean by that, but so
Fastus, is that his name? Fastus? Something like that. Brian, he looks at Hiroshima and he says, if I hadn't, he says the thing we've been complaining about. Fastos. He says what we've been complaining this whole time. He's like, if we hadn't have interfered and helped them develop, this wouldn't have happened. So I'm done. I don't want to help them anymore.
Someone who's not really enjoying the movie, at this point, I'm like, yeah, you're right.
I know. It's like, yeah.
This is, I guess, your fault.
You weren't supposed to do that. That was established day one.
Yeah.
But you gave someone a dagger right off the bat.
Yeah.
But the thing is too, it's not played like it's not like agreeing with them that they did this.
I know.
You know what I mean?
I know, yeah.
Because it could be like, oh my gosh, we did do this. Let's reckon with that. It's just like, no, come on. This was going to happen either way. We just helped them advance.
Right, yeah, right.
Like, what are you talking about?
I don't know.
And if you know anything about the butterfly effect, this movie hurts to watch. Because I'm like, even the fact that he has a family, he's affecting
I know,
humanity.
that's crazy. So like before we get to them, they're like, oh, Fastos has like sworn off humans. Like he's not participating anymore. And it's like, oh, he's participating if he has a husband and a kid
And a child.
and a house where he probably pays taxes and
In a
votes.
city.
Like he is participating
It's like you
in
can't
society.
think about this movie
He's
too
probably
hard.
participating more than anyone else in this movie, and you're telling us that he doesn't?
Oh.
He has more to fight for than anyone else.
But now, granted, I will say that Icarus says, so you're out of this whole thing, and then he laser beams a door, and there's like a shield there.
Yeah.
So they do kind of say, like, okay. Then there's the great moment where he says that it's actually an IKEA table.
Yeah.
And the whole audience stands up, cheers, and laughs and starts chanting, we love IKEA, we love IKEA, we love IKEA,
Yeah.
give us those
Well,
meatballs.
it was weird. Everyone's like eyes rolled into the back of their heads and started like it was glowing red, and they all started marching.
Yeah.
Like to the beat of some IKEA song I've never heard before, and they were like consumerism. It was weird.
And then this woman ran up to the TV with she was in a runner's outfit, and she runs up with a huge mallet and throws it into the TV, and it explodes.
Is that commercial?
And it's directed by Ridley Scott.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
And so all of this has happened. We're at the final battle. Okay? They have to use a
Well, no,
uni
they're
mind.
not. They're not.
Well, I was just skipping.
I know.
But what do you want?
But like this movie just like
It drags.
get there, man. So they still have to get to the other character who I forgot existed.
You know that feeling if you live in town and you say to yourself, you know what, I'm going to walk to this location because I want to get a little exercise. And you start walking, and about halfway there, you go, oh, I wish I would have driven. That's the feeling that this movie is.
The other Makari. They still got to get to Makari, who's been living on the spaceship.
Who's Makari?
The fast person.
The fast
one.
person?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Flash.
They forgot about
They
her.
forgot about
They
her.
straight up forgot about her.
They straight up forgot. So like, this is crazy. So they have to go find her, and she's on the ship. She's been like living there this didn't make sense to me. So the ship so they have to go to like present day Iraq. And the ship is buried in the sand and the dirt. I'm presuming from centuries of just being there inactive because they haven't needed it. But they raise it from the dirt. And she's been living there the whole time. And there's like bags of potato chips and Twinkies in there. How'd they get in there?
I didn't even think about that.
I don't get that. So
It's just
been,
so
like,
not well thought out.
She's been just like holed up here, I think, just waiting to go home the whole time. But I guess somehow she's been getting out for snacks. In
She
Iraq.
is fast.
So, well, that's true. She is fast.
But that doesn't affect the fact
Well, it
that...
could explain her getting Twinkies. In Iraq. But so they're there, and then this also was just kind of like, I don't need it, guys. I don't need it anymore.
Yeah.
Where Drumig is there, and they're like, her and him are like flirting, and it's like, oh, I've always liked you, and it's like, guys, we're too far in the movie for you to establish this. I don't care. Let's just keep it going.
Well, they did have some flirtatious stuff at the in their flashbacks.
But it's just like,
I actually kind of liked that. Funny enough.
like the chemistry was cute.
Yeah.
But it was just like, why are you guys have been around for thousands of years, ever since Drumig like left, abandoned everyone, and not within those thousands of years, eventually they were like, I think we should try to make this work maybe.
Yeah.
Nope.
So,
By the way, we glossed over the sex scene, by the way.
yeah,
which
there's a
is
sex scene.
Never happened in a Marvel movie and was surprising.
It
I
was surprising.
surprised.
It was surprising. It was like, it reminded me of like 20 years ago, every PG-13 movie.
But it's just weird because it's Marvel.
Oh, yeah. And PG-13 movies like don't have sex scenes in them anymore.
Yeah.
So it was like, whoa.
It was weird.
I knew because it had made headlines that there's sex in the movie. It's 2 shots. But
Yeah.
I was like, oh, I don't know why, but in my head, because there were headlines about it, I'm thinking like, oh, this is going to be like
full on.
Not full on, but like really pushing a PG-13 rating. And then we watched it, I'm like, oh, okay.
No, you're right about that. You're right about
My
that.
expectation was just so much different from what it was. But anyway, they go to the final boss.
So they're all gonna like work together with these ring bracelet things to like
Now,
be hive mind or something.
Icarus says, I'm going to stop you guys because this needs to happen. And Sprite goes, okay, goes with him. And then they make a reference to how Sprite's always been in love with him. Couldn't you tell? Not set up at all.
No.
Then Kumail, so this is what I mean by I think Chloe is trying to subvert expectations. Because then Kumail says, there's no way we can take him, even combined. I'm out. I'm not going to fight.
Well, no, but he's like, I've always been on your side.
Yeah.
But I can't exactly fight against my family.
And then, folks,
we don't see him until the end of the movie.
He does not fight.
No.
Now, that is a classic, like, obviously, I'm sitting there and I'm going, okay, he's going to show up at the last second, give him the last juice they need, and then they'll be able to freeze the Celestial. He doesn't show up at all.
Which is, I know he's had some other action previous in the movie, but I did think, oh, Kumail got in shape for nothing.
Yeah. It does feel like that, yeah.
It does.
And I know that he did get in shape because he wanted to be, he's Pakistani, right?
Mm-hmm. The first Pakistani superhero, like, physique and type.
Yeah,
and
he
all
wanted
of it.
to represent that culture and be like, look.
Yeah.
Like, this is impressive. And I think that's really cool that he wanted to do that. But it is kind of like, huh?
Yeah.
For this? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And so he leaves, and then at the end of the movie, they're just like, hey, thanks for nothing. And he's like, yeah, no problem. I'll be around to do nothing next time.
Like, he seems like there's like no guilt or remorse, really.
Nope. He's like, whatever.
There's something also at the end that I didn't get, but we'll get to it.
So, but what I want to say, though, is I think that's her being like, what if we did this? What if we had a character leave and they just left?
No, but that's not true. They just forgot.
It doesn't work.
It doesn't.
So they fight for a long time.
Yeah.
The fights are semi-decent. I don't want to like totally disregard them.
Yeah.
But at least this last section. But I was just like so bored. I was like, I got to go home.
I know, it was
I
so
need to
boring.
go home.
So Angelina Jolie fights the deviant. And at this point, it's like, guys, why is this deviant in this? It's just like having a third bad guy that doesn't need to be there. But she defeats him, of course. Yeah. And then Icarus is being subdued so that he can't thwart their mission. And like, Cersei starts doing her thing to like defeat, but there was so many shots.
I did like the design of the Celestial, and it was cool when it was coming out of the
I agree with that.
Volcano.
But there were so many times where the camera would cut to her, and she is literally just staring at a volcano, not doing anything.
It looked like the actor was standing there, and they had started rolling the cameras, and they hadn't called action yet, because she was just kind of like standing there,
just whatever. And it didn't seem like she was stressed as in terms of like, what do I do?
It was so bad there.
So she gets stabbed by Sprite, who then gets hit in the head by a rock by Druig. And then the stab doesn't seem to really affect Cersei. And that was another confusing thing that I had with this, is all of the Eternals have different types of powers. One is like super strong, but they all seem to be like pretty strong at some point. Like they can take a hit, they can get thrown around. But sometimes it felt inconsistent in terms of pain. Like
absolutely.
How much pain
I couldn't figure out what
so she gets stabbed
the power was
through the abdomen by a dagger. And it feels
and then
like,
she just casually looks at a volcano again.
Well, yeah, but then it feels like, okay, she might die now. And like Selma was the only one that could heal wounds. So like she probably, this might be she's going to do in the last second, save everything. And then she's going to be swooped off.
Or it's like the deviant, they've made a big deal about how the deviant can heal now. Maybe it says, I need to help.
Yeah.
And it heals her.
Yeah.
But they're just like, no, it's fine.
I just made the knife water. And it's like, yeah, but you still got a wound through you. I don't get it. So
can we just get to where Cersei and Icarus share their moment?
Yeah. Which, okay, gotta say, I thought this was sweet.
I think this scene was excellent. I will go so far as to say it was excellent. It was fantastic. And if the rest of the movie was good, that would have been like the perfect capper to the movie.
And it was great that he cried a lot. The actor cried a lot.
I don't even remember
Icarus
that.
did. It just felt like he cried a lot during this part. So like he's
just like streaming.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
he almost ugly crying.
But we're not explaining what
And
happened.
So he is there. He is full on just gonna stop her.
Yeah.
And he's trying to, but he can't do it. And that they both kind of have like a shared memory going back down memory lane about their life. Like they're married.
Uh-huh.
And them falling in love together and becoming married and being together and like realizing she is trying so hard to fight for this world because of their love.
Yeah,
Like,
that's
that's
beautiful.
Her motivation. And in that moment, that's why he realizes why she's fighting so hard. And it like hits even stronger because they haven't been together for a long time. Like he left her.
Yeah.
So it's like that's good storytelling.
Yeah. It's a
But
powerful scene.
It's powerful, but the whole movie you weren't doing that.
Right.
So it just makes it a bummer.
Yeah.
So he doesn't stop her. He ends up helping, well, almost being like overtaken by the hive mind thing.
Mm-hmm.
And she stops the celestial.
Yeah.
Saves the day.
And then she gets taken away. We already talked about that.
So
We talked about how they don't really resolve
this
anything.
is kind of funny to me. And this is one of those things where it's like, it's a movie thing. Don't think about it too much. But I'm getting nitpicky at this point, so it's just fun. So they're still on the beach. Sprite's there. And she's like, Sprite, I think I have enough celestial power in me to make you mortal.
Oh, yeah.
And it's like, how could you possibly know that you have that power? How could you possibly know that?
And I didn't... What?
Yeah, so, but the whole thing with Sprite is she's always been a kid and she doesn't want to be, they're always therefore been treated as one. And wants nothing more than to have a human experience. So she's made mortal. Well, whatever. And then we are, it's sometime later. Sprite seems to be moving to like India with Kingo. And at one point she's like, yeah, if I have time in between school to do all these things. And they're like, well, you're a kid. You wanted the experience, kind of chiding her for it.
Yeah.
And I'm just thinking, she's been around for thousands of years and you're making her go to school.
Yeah.
I think we can skip the school thing and she can still have an experience.
And again,
right?
they hitting this whole thing hard, and they reference Peter Pan throughout the movie and stuff. And it's like, but you never explain why she is this way. So it doesn't matter to me.
Yeah.
So then it finally ends. There's the post-credit scene that we already talked about, but then there's something else that was wild.
We were freaking out.
So they're in the celestial ship, and this portal opens up, and this little troll comes out, Pip the Troll, voiced by Patton Oswalt.
Which I was happy to hear his voice. Because he's a big comic book nerd.
Yeah, it was fun. I would hope that the CG will maybe have an upgrade if he's in a movie.
A big effing upgrade?
But it's a post-credit scene. It's probably not the most attention to detail there. And then out of a portal walks someone who presents themselves as Eros, the brother of Thanos.
Yeah.
And it is played by Harry Styles.
One Direction's Harry Styles.
And it's a little bit jarring.
I was so flabbergasted.
And it's one of those things where it's like, because this movie was so bad, and I think the script was just terrible, but I think the casting was also sort of bad on
other characters,
Cersei's and the guy the first one who dies, who's strong.
Yeah,
like a couple of the casting, like usually the casting in Marvel is perfect.
Yeah,
almost. And this one was like, this is a little hit or miss depending on the character. So when I see Harry Styles come out, if this is Guardians 3 and he's walking out, I'm like, fully trust, let's go.
We'll do standing O for that.
Yeah, but in this, I'm like, uh-oh.
But we did feel that way. But then you looked up the comic book character.
And it does have a Harry Styles vibe.
And it does have a Harry Styles vibe and very charismatic looking and very handsome. So it is like, okay, I think they might have nailed it. And I don't even know who
as long
this
as it's not directed by Chloé Zhao, I think it'll work.
Well, if they allow him to potentially be fun and funny how he seemed to be in that post-credit scene.
Yeah.
I think it'll be great.
Yes. No, I don't, no disrespect to Harry Styles. I'm a Harry Styles fan.
No, I agree with you because of what we had just gone through for the past 2.5 hours.
Yeah, it was the context.
And then you're going to throw Harry Styles in my face?
Yeah.
I can't handle it anymore. I gotta go home.
And then, but what was funny is I saw some stuff today that Chloé Zhao has been doing interviews and talking about how she saw Dunkirk. And when she saw Dunkirk, she was like, that's Eros.
Oh.
So like before she got hired for this movie, she's like, that Harry Styles, that guy right there, he's Eros, which is like kind of cute and fun.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's Eternals, folks.
My throat hurts from talking.
Mine does too. We really hope you enjoyed this episode. Do you have any last things you want to say?
No, I gotta be done talking about this.
Me too. Next week, we start a brand new series. It's Bill and Ted, and we start our Keanu Reeves adventure, which we'll explain in that episode. And if you haven't watched the Bill and Ted movies, I really recommend doing so.
Big recommend. As someone who had not seen them prior to this podcast, and being in the middle of a pandemic, and it seems to be no end in sight, it's a
Really
perfect
great.
pick-me-up.
Really great.
Do yourself a favor and watch it.
Yeah, and so we'll see you next week. And happy Thanksgiving?
Oh,
No, this comes out next week. So in like 2 weeks, happy Thanksgiving.
okay.
So we'll see you then. Bye.